You're an old infant, right? And that's an ugly thing, an old infant. The willingness to be a fool is the precursor to transformation. Fix the things you repeat every day. If you're feeling heroic and you want to do something for the world and you want to expand what you understand, you poke your head through what you know and you take a look at whatever structure is out there. It's incumbent on you to act as if you genuinely care for yourself. Conceptualize the highest good that you can and then strive to attain it.
Can you tell me and the audience, will you tell me your name, how old you are, and where you are from?
Okay, my name is Gavin Grimsley. So I'm originally was born and raised in Conway, South Carolina, and excuse me, I'm 23. I now live in Charleston, South Carolina. So right down the coast, about 2 hours.
Awesome. I can tell from your accent. I knew it immediately.
Yeah, everybody says that.
Yep. Can you tell me just a little bit about who you are, like your hobbies, your interests?
Yeah, probably like, I guess in context of Jordan Peterson, probably, you know what, I was going to say maybe the quintessential like fan, or I don't know if fan is the right word, but with how unique I'm starting to realize the quintessential fan may be for somebody for Jordan Peterson, I might not be. I'm a skill like trade worker. I do woodworking. And so I've done that since I was 17. I went to high school. I'm from Conway, South Carolina. I moved to another rural type town, Florence, graduated high school. I've always just worked with my hands, and I've always been big into reading and just kind of researching. I've always been a student of history. And so kind of like a little mixture of everything is what I would kind of classify myself as.
Is there a particular era of history that you read the most?
Reading wise, I'm a big fan of like journal reading, things like that. Like, so wartime, like history is really, and so I wouldn't really pin down like a specific period. I would say World War II is the most intriguing, or probably something I'm the most knowledgeable in would be World War II. But I like the Civil War. I like the Mexican American Revolution. I guess wartime history would be my thing.
Yep. All right, so since we're kind of telling some stories of some transformations in our lives, once we've heard of Jordan Peterson and started applying his rules, will you kind of tell me how your life was pre-Jordan Peterson?
Let's see, I heard of Jordan Peterson. I think the first time I ever saw anything in reference to Jordan Peterson was the video it was after the C-16, I think, Bill C-16 law in Canada. And it was he's got the suspenders on and the white shirt. And there's the two guys that are standing behind him,
yeah.
And that was the first video that I ever saw of him. And I've never read all of 12 Rules, but it was something that I always referred back to. And so I started listening a lot to his lectures more. So I'm a very slow reader. So like, I have a hard time reading something that's not like chronological, or I've always had a hard time reading something like 12 Rules. Like it's something I'd have a hard time really going all the way through, but I love his lectures. And so I really got into him when I started working, and I was always doing some kind of trade work where it was somewhere I was like using my hands, but I might could have some earphones in. Yep. And so it wasn't just him. There was a lot of like Robert Sapolsky is another guy that I love to listen to, if you know who that is, or there's a lot of people that I really don't share their views with, but like maybe like Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, people like that. But Jordan Peterson was the one person that it was kind of like he was becoming more relevant whenever I was like 18, 19. So I guess the coming of age for like what you would say is like a young man really like growing into himself. And I can remember me and my buddy, I would say probably my best friend, really kind of like listening to some of his lectures. And it was never, I've always been somebody who I didn't try to like obsess, and like be too much into one person here or there. I try to stay like pretty open-minded, but listening to his lectures, learning to clean my room, and really hone in on being accountable, I think is the one thing that I resonated with the most as far as any kind of sentiment for anything that he talks about.
Yeah. So he helped you organize your life, which
Well, he put a face to a name. Really, is like he put like I grew up. I'll tell you something about myself that really could could help you get a better insight. I grew up with a single mom, pretty lower class, pretty poor, I guess to say. And my dad passed away when I was younger, so it was a single mom, my older brother, and myself. I was 2 years old when my dad passed away, so it was always something where I had men in my life, and we all know that I don't want to generalize, but it's a lot of young men that are really more so into Jordan Peterson. I say into Jordan Peterson using that loosely, but it was somebody really saying the things that nobody else would, and I think that's something that I look up to, and I think it's the guys that are like that, guys or girls, but I was saying the people that are like that that I find the most admirable in a lot of ways. And I'm not to say that if you say something that is out of the ordinary that makes you admirable, but if you're the one who is willing to say what needs to be said but nobody really wants to hear, and maybe in some of his arguments are a lot of things that can be misconstrued very easily, or which you hear the like the straw man fallacy, people say that, like, and so hearing him be the one to say I don't really care how, really being the guy to take the brunt really is what he became in my mind. And it was nice to see, and I've always been somebody that was like that, like I felt like I could be the one to stand up for people who really didn't feel like they could stand up for themselves. And I admired that about him and his attitude and his sin. And after he became sick and kind of went on his hiatus, it was something where nobody really heard until I think it was his daughter, Michaela, who had talked a lot about what he had going on after he had been kind of going through most of it and was on the other side. But I think a lot of people kind of use that as to say, like, stick their thumb up and say, what we told you so, that he was not what, you thought he might have been, this and that and other. But I think that kind of reiterated a lot of what he always taught. He was never trying to be the Superman, or I think a lot of people ascribed a lot to him, but just that's really, he was a face and a name for kind of the things I needed to be told, but there was nobody in my life to tell me, and I think whenever he was sick and came back, and I think that's when I really learned to admire him more, because it was years removed from when we were kind of like coming up together in a weird way, like I was growing into a man while he was kind of gaining prominence. And then I kind of went through periods of my life where I went through rough patches almost at the same time he did. And then now it's kind of to see him on the other side is nice. And I feel like it's been a nice transgression, and I've been able to take what I can and apply it in the best ways possible throughout, for the most part, and really just help me gain confidence, to think that you can do anything really. You just got to be accountable. And one thing I can say, I know I'm ranting. I don't want to talk too much. I apologize. But I think I used to be I'm not to say I'm not anymore, but I used to really like Joe Rogan. That was probably the first podcast I really got into, was Joe Rogan. I think a lot of people can say that. And it might've been the second time he was on Joe Rogan. And I'd heard him say this kind of thing in some of his lectures before, but it was he was talking and he was saying, like working out. He was talking about him working out. He's like, a lot of people, they're scared to go to the gym. They don't want to be like the skinny, weak person. They want to go in there, start doing the crazy weight, this and that. And he said when he started working out, he was in college. And he said, he's like, it's funny to hear him talk about it, because he's like, I was skinny as hell, things like that. And he's like, I started working out. And he said, I went little by little. And it's kind of the same way my mom, when I was younger, would always tell me. My mom's a very strong woman. And she would say, and he kind of basically echoed the same thing, is being great. I don't want to say greatness, but being great, being the best version of yourself is never like these big, large steps. It's these really small, achievable steps. And it's identifying those steps to build upon to really make you who you are. That was one thing that I remember. And I think I was like 18 and I had just moved out of my mom's house. I was like, I do woodworking. And so I just got a first job that I have gotten into, like the woodworking business. And I was sitting in my room and I was listening to that. I said, dang, that's really groundbreaking. If you can break everything down into achievable steps. And that was the moment, I guess, to go all the way back to the initial question, where I said, okay, this guy right here is somebody that I can say, like, I can admire that idea. And I'm not going to hold him to a standard that he can never have a bad idea or could never fall or be weak in a moment or whatever. But that is something I admire. And I think it's a testament to just who he is as a person, that it really stuck with me. That was a lot. I apologize.
No, don't apologize. I'm just trying to think of how to formulate the next question. Can you quantify any like really tangible, maybe day-to-day things that you have implemented and how it's changed your day-to-day life?
I would say you could go back to cleaning your room and focusing on kind of the smaller things with yourself before you try and tackle the world. And that was one part of 12 Rules that I really can remember reading, and it's sticking with me. And it's something that I guess to say that I practice the most now, of something that you could say is a quintessential like Jordan Peterson like spearheaded idea. That would be the main one. And I think that's probably the most generic answer. I think a lot of people could say that. But yeah, I think that would be one of the more main ones, is to just, and whether it be in the physical sense of like actually keeping my room clean and being organized and seeing how those things can transgress into more like other aspects of your life, but really just being disciplined, you know. And I think that's what I always gathered from that rule. That's the main thing I can say, that if I held on to anything and somebody say, who's the what made you stick to that? I was like, the way that he explained the importance of that was really like cardinal to me. I liked, you know.
Have these improvements bled into helping you in your relationships with your mom and your siblings?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I don't know if there's one rule, and I don't know if it's exactly like this is how it said. It's like, be the strongest person at your mother or father's funeral, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, like I said, I was raised by a single parent. My mom remarried, so I have a little half brother, and then she actually got divorced from my stepdad recently, and so it's like funny kind of seeing the dynamic change. It's weird how everything is all throughout my life, you know, as I've kind of grown. It's like the perfect amount of obstacles been kind of like thrown at me, you know. That was something that I can say, thinking of that, and the way I'd heard him reference that in lectures, and then reading a little bit about it, thinking to myself that there's a lot of things that you can aim for, but that's something you can really always aim for. And that's just like an attitude adjustment. And that's really not like some huge big move, whether it be physical or something tangible you can do, or something that you can just do in your mind mentally. But that's something that you can always aim to be strong. And I think when I realized that, I got older, and I started doing things to not just make my life more efficient and easier in a sense that I don't get in my own way, but even the people around me, you know, whether it be my brothers or my mom or my family, my coworkers, my girlfriend, friends, my dogs, whoever.
What are your plans for the future?
I don't know. Well, I do know partially. So I live in Charleston now, Charleston, South Carolina, and my girlfriend, she actually has been living in Houston, Texas. We're like high school, you know, not like sweethearts, but we're from the same town. This, you know, all that. I'll save you the story for that because I'll end up ranting. But we're about to move to Greenville actually, so she's there right now, and I'm packing things up, and so that'll be in the next. I'm leaving the job I have now to go up there, and we're doing the whole thing. We're going to live together. So I got that coming. I never went to college. So I guess deep down in the future, later on, I want to go back and get a degree at some point. I always wanted to be a history professor, but it was always something that I knew, as far as like monetizing it, it would be difficult going forward unless it was something that I had a real specific avenue in which how I was going to do it. But at the time of when it would have been feasible for me to go off to college, it was just not really in the plans. So I would like to go back to school one day. I'd like to own my own business in the future. I would go as far enough to say I will own my own business in the future. And yeah, other than that, I'll hopefully be a dad one day and have a family. I'm only 23, so, you know, just of the things that I can think about that I would say are goals, there's those. And then, but for the moment, you know, at 8:53 right now in South Carolina, I'm just trying to be the best person I can be, you know, whether it be brother or son or boyfriend or friend or worker. I'm trying to I've been at the place I work at now for the last 2 years, trying to end some relationships in the best manner possible, leaving where I've lived in Charleston for the last 4 years, and then I'm going somewhere new. So I'm just trying to kind of make the nice blend of ending the relationships in the most gratuitous, not ending so much so, but moving on from these in the most gratuitous way and respectful way, and then entering into the next part of my life, this next chapter, with like the most open mindset.
If you could talk to Jordan Peterson right now, what would you say?
That's a good question. I read all the questions you sent me, and I should have wrote them down so I had them right here. That's funny you say that. But I also told myself, I was like, I've never done anything like this, but I was like, this is a cool opportunity. And most people don't go as far to reach out to you. And so I said, I'm going to be more so organic than just, staged. And so I don't know what I would say to him. That's a good question. I would probably say I'm happy that he shared a lot of the ideas that he has. But I think in his mind, it almost seems like, especially listening to his podcast, because I've really enjoyed listening to his podcast recently, which is the episode he had with, I think her name's Naomi Park, probably one of my favorite podcast episodes of anything ever, listening to that. But I would tell him that whatever he's doing the right thing. And I think that's not based on what I think, but based on what he thinks, as long as he's happy. And I think that's something that it's almost like it's a weird dynamic. And I think a lot of people feel the way I do. When you think about him, especially after, him getting sick and making more so what you call a comeback, you have this, it's just such a paradoxical, it's almost like a brother and a father in a weird way. Like it's somebody that you want to put your arm around and say hey man, everything's all good. But then it's also somebody you look up to and you admire, but you don't look at them forever having been weak, for having a moment where they were down. So in that same respect, you try not to idolize too much, as to not kind of create too high of a standard, because we're all humans. And that's one of the things that he echoes the most. You kind of got to forgive yourself. And that's the yin and the yang to accountability. So I would probably try and just be as cool as possible and ride the line of just share some of the ideas that I like the most of his, and maybe just shoot the breeze in a way that, I'm not, just don't say nothing too stupid.
I think that sounds like a really good strategy. Might be easier.
It would be
said than done.
intimidating.
Yep. Well, that wraps me up for the questions. I really appreciate you doing this and spending your time, and I'm glad we could finally get our schedules to line up.
Yeah, I apologize for I was gonna save you the sob story message you. I've been moving and doing a whole bunch of flying from here and there and all around, and it's just been a lot. And I was going to get up this morning, and I was like, chances are I may sleep through my alarm. So I would rather just let you know beforehand and then try and reschedule before you just get a bad taste in your mouth thinking I was leaving you hanging around.
Yep. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Have a good night.
If you would like to be featured in an episode, email me at thejbpeffect@gmail.com. I am on Instagram at thejbpeffect and YouTube, The Jordan Peterson Effect. If you would like to support the production costs of this podcast, go to patreon.com/thejordanpetersoneffect.